education from Harvard. Colby is a poet, author, and teaching artist who teaches students throughout the lifespan. Although she lives in New Jersey, she has roots here in Michigan. Colby is an accomplished poet. Her poems have been published in Pleiades, Mid-American Review, and the Iowa Review. She's been a finalist in over 20 poetry prize competitions and was awarded the 2020 New Jersey Council on the Arts Fellowship in Poetry. Her debut novel in verse, Call Me Athena, Girl from Detroit, was published in 2021. It tells a multi-generational story of Mary, born in America, and her parents, Jean, a French immigrant, and Georgos, or Geo, an immigrant from Greece. Each of them has a unique voice and perspective in the novel. Each is a beautifully and fully realized character whom we come to care about deeply. Call Me Athena is a 2022 Michigan Notable Book, a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard Selection, an American Booksellers Association Indie Next Pick, a Cybils Award nominee, and a Goodreads Best Poetry Award nominee. I loved reading Call Me Athena and know that we're in for a special evening. Please welcome Colby Cedar Smith.
Oh, that was a wonderful intro, Lisa, thank you so much. Well, I really just first want to say that I am always so enthralled and like heartened by poetry circles, and the fact that you are all gathering together and have been gathering together and have a community such as this that I can step into is so amazing. I think circles like this are making the world a better place. So thank you for creating this, for holding this, for being part of this, and for caring about your community members. It's really an incredible thing. I'm constantly honored that people ask me to join their circles like this to talk about my work, and it's humbling to me. And so I will tell you a little bit about the book, and then I actually have some pictures and some slides that I might share, because I think this is a really different sort of novel because it's based on my family from Detroit. And I love talking to people who are actually in Michigan because they can get it in a different way than other people can. But it is based on real people, and I took liberties. It is loosely based on their lives, so I called it fiction, but a lot of the scaffolding of the story is true. It is really based on my grandmother, Mary Scandalaris, who, as Lisa said, was the daughter of Greek and French immigrants in Detroit in the 1930s. And the book is really about Mary struggling to find her way as a modern American woman. And she's really pushing the boundaries, and she wants to grow beyond the cultures that her parents have come to America with. And she's now in this very traditional Greek community in Detroit. And then it has flashbacks, like Lisa was saying, to Greece and France. And so I'm hoping to share a little bit about, or share from each of those sections today. And then maybe one or two adult, see, Dan, I said adult, not YA books, or sorry, not YA poems tonight as well. So I'm just going to show you a little, I'm going to share my screen, and I hope this works again because we tried it out. And here I am. Let me also say that I am not only, I started out as a poet publishing in journals, but also I am a teacher, and first and foremost a teacher, I would say, and I teach adults and children and people of all ages. And I think Lisa expressed that in her intro. Thank you. So this book that I wrote is a story that began long ago. This is my grandmother Mary and her mother Jean. And I wrote this book after my grandmother Mary passed, and she struggled with Alzheimer's for many years. So my grandmother was a stellar storyteller, and she was funny and smart, and she loved to talk about Detroit during the Depression. She loved to talk about the Ford factory and the poverty that her family faced. And I grew up listening to these stories. And so when she passed, after losing all of her stories with Alzheimer's, I felt like writing this book was the best way to honor her. And so these are pictures of them. That's Mary as she is about the age in the story at the bottom. And these are her mother and father. And I also wrote this book because right after my grandmother passed, my daughter contracted scarlet fever. And for those of you who have read the book, scarlet fever plays a big role in it. And so in an hour, my daughter went from completely healthy in the middle of the night to having a 105-degree fever. And she was so sick that she was hallucinating that it was snowing in her room and that there was a train of children coming to take her home. And so I said, don't get on the train. And I immediately called our doctor, who's amazing and will answer phone calls in the middle of the night. And we were scheduling her to go to the hospital, etc. And she had this rash that bloomed all over her body, especially on her chest. And I knew from this story that my grandmother had told me throughout my life that she had scarlet fever. I knew right away. She had a sore throat. She had the rash. She had all of these things. She was vomiting every 45 minutes. And I remember going through this night with this very sick child waiting to take her, like trying to get all of the arrangements made. And it felt like my great grandmother, who had lost a child to this exact same thing, was sitting with me. And I was holding my suffering child, and I get kind of emotional when I talk about this, and my great grandmother was holding me. And that connection was so palpable during that moment. And it made me start to think about the trauma that's held and passed from one generation to another. And I began to ask huge, big questions that every human asks, like, why is one life taken when one is spared? My daughter is healthy. She's 10. She's amazing. She's above average. As Garrison Keillor loved to say, well begun. So I began to ask these big questions, like, why was my daughter able to live, and why was another daughter in our family not spared? And I'm thankful for antibiotics, which is the real reason. But also, I feel like there are bigger patterns in families that are present. So I began to wonder if intergenerational healing can take place through this shared experience of memory and storytelling. And I began to wonder if I could be the bridge between the past and the future. And that's a humongous, humongous question for me about this book. Like, that was my goal, and I hope that it was achieved. And I find great resonance, this sort of clawing, clamoring sound, when we start to talk about like patterning and time. And I think as poets do, this sort of like deep feeling in our chest where we can tell that something is different and askew, and, as our lovely Emily said, slightly slant. So I feel these connections between the past and the present are often very present in our lives, and this can affect the choices that we make and who we become. And this quote on the right is from Hamilton, which I'm obsessed with, and my children who are 10 and 13 are obsessed with. But it's like, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And that's really honestly what I was trying to do for my grandma. So also, it began with this journey that I took to Ellis Island when I first moved to the East Coast. And I got to Ellis Island and I was like, oh, I wonder if the Scandalarises are here. And it turns out they were, and they pulled up this manifest and my name is on it. I don't know if you can see this, but you can like see, hold on, let's see. There they are, Jean, and he called himself George at that point because he had changed Yorgos to George. And you can see on this side, Colby is written several times. And what the hell? Like talking about some sort of like echoing, clamoring time. Why is my name on their manifest? It's crazy. So I immediately started to do all of the research that I possibly could. And then I became super excited to tell the story of Detroit because Detroit is amazing. And it's opulence and it's glamour and it's like industry and all of Detroit, and it's a little bit of this and a little bit of this during the 1930s and a lot of that. And as I started to do more and more research, I started to realize that it was things that we were still kind of working on today. And I think that this time in Detroit was a time of economic disparity. There were them that had and them that didn't. And I started to think about all of the layers of that and start to kind of try to tell my grandmother's story within this historical background. And so I started to do a ton of research. And I think that it's a historical novel about one American family. And I believe that the themes that are present in the book, identity, family, freedom, equality, hope, love, are themes that are timeless. And that's what I was really trying to get at when I wrote the book. So it's a story of place, and I tried to put as many places in the book that were still places that people could visit in Detroit and places that I love. Belle Isle. God, I love that place. And my great-grandfather worked in the Ford foundry. And so I wanted to know all about how he felt when he was working there. I wanted to put myself in that place. And I really wanted to research all of these people that were present during that time. And so you see a lot of, not Jeanne d'Arc, she had her day before that, but she's one of my faves. So she showed up in the book. But Amelia Earhart was flying during that time. And there's a story that's actually real where Eleanor Roosevelt actually helped my grandmother's family, and that shows up in the book. And so I did a whole bunch of research, and it turns out she helped a lot of immigrant women with children. That was her soft spot. And it really just inspired me to read and read and read and read and do a lot of research. And then I took my family to France. And I actually think I split one. So this actually is a slide of where that's the village in Greece. That's what it looks like at the ocean. Isn't it gorgeous? And I visited there as a family. And, I met my great grandfather's twin sister Violetta and explored the hills and the olive groves that are so present in the book. But I had never been to Saint-Malo, France. So we went there. And then that became just a whole different thing. We went to the medieval walled city and we visited the convent where Jeanne lived and the wartime hospital where she worked, and climbed the rose granite rocks on the beautiful northern shore. And that really informed a lot of her section. So, and then we went to Detroit. And maybe if you have been to Detroit, although maybe you don't live in Detroit, that's a question. Are you all from the same town, or are you from different places all around?
We're from different places.
And all from Michigan, or all over the country?
We have people from Maine. One person here from Maine. We have people from several states.
Wonderful.
I'm from Chicago.
Yay.
So we have people that are in those places now, or people that are from those places and here now.
So you have cast a wide net.
We have. Well, since we went from live to virtual, we've made an effort to expand. And
wonderful.
And we have done that. And you are someplace on the East Coast, right?
I'm in New Jersey. I'm in
New Jersey.
Basically okay. Princeton, New Jersey. So yeah.
We've been able to, in this way, we've been able to get readers from Hawaii and California and Illinois, and it's greatly expanded our audience and our stable of readers.
That's so amazing. That's so great. So I will slightly less angle this towards Detroit or Michigan, but so we did travel to where my grandmother grew up in Michigan, and these are all the places that really take place in the book. My grandmother's high school in Highland Park, the Institute of Art, Belle Isle, and I had the pleasure of showing my family these photographs, not these photographs, this place. And also, it's a novel in verse, and I started out as a poet, like many of you, just a poet, not a novelist. And so I had to teach myself how to write a novel, and that was a whole journey. So it's a story that began long ago, but continues today. And this is my mom and dad and sister and my husband and my sister's husband and all of Mary Scandalaris's great grandbabies. So that's where I will pause. And then I'm just going to read a little bit from the book, and you can get the feeling of it. It's what I would say is just listen and let it wash over you, because it's not individual poems, it's a story, but it is broken up into lines. And my copy is all marked up, but you can see, if you haven't read it, it does look like poetry on the page. There's a lot of white space. And so it's 575 pages, but I always say you can read it in a couple of hours. And it flips through very quickly, which I think you'll see that it's quite a different form. And this form is often very popular in the middle grade and young adult world. But what's so fascinating to me is that I wrote this to kind of be a crossover novel for the adult world and the middle grade world and the young adult world. But I don't know why this form doesn't actually exist in the adult world yet. And so I would challenge us all to write some adult novel in verses, not adult in the way that Dan mentioned earlier, but in but also, using your poems in kind of interesting ways and mixed genre ways, which is what I have done here. So I'm going to start with Mary's section. She is, and I'm going to go to Greece and France too, but she's in Detroit in I have to check the date because I'm dyslexic when it comes to numbers, 1933. And she has just been told that she is going to have an arranged marriage to a man named Demetrius. And so we start there, and she's stuck, basically. So you'll feel that way. And then we'll travel to France, to Greece, maybe. Your eyes, this is her mother talking. Your eyes are the color of cultures clashing, she says, as she kisses me between my lashes. The dark brown of the Greeks mixed with the stormy gray of northwestern France. My eyes turn green with anger. Oh, Mary, she says, calm yourself. You must get used to the idea of marriage. Marguerite, that's her twin sister, pats my hand. Her eyes calm as a fox, liquid pools of the sweetest amber. My eyes glow like a serpent. The 16-year-old girls in our town are precious candies waiting in a crystal dish. The boys get to reach in, choose whichever treat they want. Marguerite will be taken by a man from a good family. She is sweet and brings a smile to your mouth. When I talk, boys look like they've bitten on something bitter. I imagine I'm pulling on a silk dress with a feathered boa and matching slippers. Instead, I squeeze into a wool dress that is 2 sizes too small. The fabric barely buttons across my growing breasts. I'm filled with defeat even before I arrive at the battlefront. School. I tuck mother's rouge, a secret, into my pocket, secure my stockings with hidden red ribbons around my thighs, a little color just for me. I try to fix my hair, never sleek and kempt, a dark brown, wild, tickling monster that longs for the inside of my mouth. I've always felt a woman's power is in her hair. The problem is I have more of it than most, and I have no idea how to tame it. We climb down the stairs, pass through our father's store, and enter the busy street. Our neighborhood smells like trash, metal, and oil, ammonia, slaughtered chickens and roasted goat meat. Folks from Greece, Romania, Poland, and Mexico, and many Black families who've come up from the South inhabit the row houses and duplexes along our street. Most of our neighbors came to Detroit because Ford paid his workers well, $5 a day. Word spread far and wide. My mother says, I'll never have to travel the world, I'll never have to travel to learn the ways of the world. The whole world lives in Detroit. For 20 years, the factory fed and nourished every part of this town. Food on the table, money in the schools, doctors for the sick. Every morning, the citizens walked in one direction toward the factory floors, the River Rouge. Animals gathering at the watering hole. Detroit drank deep, sustenance. Now water is scarce. We pray the source won't run dry. So that's Mary, poised on a moment in Detroit. And we're going to go to Komnina, Central Greece in 1916 at the moment when World War I is about to break out in Greece. His sister has also been just married in an arranged marriage, which is the way that he knows how to do it. And that's why he has given his daughter an arranged marriage. And we are put into an olive grove at the beginning of this section with his newly married sister and brother-in-law. Yorgos, Komnina, Central Greece, 1916. I help Kostas, that's his brother-in-law, harvest olives. We lay thick nets beneath branches of the trees, then raise our rakes and rattle them through the sage-colored leaves. The purple ovals fall to the ground. Costas looks across the field. I see my sister walking toward us, the sun on her skin, her long black hair tied in a red scarf, a white billowing shirt tucked into her new pair of pinstriped pants. She helps to gather the corners of the net and work the fruit to the center. We sort the olives from the fallen branches, load them into burlap sacks, ready to take them to the oil press. At the end of the day, Costas unveils a bottle of wine and 3 small glasses. We raise a toast to the harvest. Sinyejas mas, to our health. We take a sip. When can I help you finish your boat, brother? A smile spreads across my sister's face, as wide as the Aegean Sea. Soldiers have entered our village. I'm worried for our safety. They sit in the square and drink strong coffee and cloudy ouzo, their rifles resting on the table. They think they are here to protect us. The captain watches the young girls at the fountain, the hungry eyes of a wolf who has been trained to hunt. No goat, no milk, no feta. Prices are soaring. The stores have no bread. Our village is hungry. I feel the desperation and anger bubbling up, a kettle held over a flame. I take our donkey and follow the switchback trails down the shore. Mariecos Colpos, our green-blue bay wrapped by a belt of land. The fishermen dock their boats. They empty their nets. Hundreds of silverfish alive and thrashing spill onto the dock. We sort them by size, toss them into wicker baskets. I load them onto a donkey. The baskets hang from my trusted friend who will heft my load through the steep hills. The fishmongers wait in the village square. The women push and elbow each other to snatch the best catch of the day. They take the silver bodies in both hands and inhale deeply. The smell of the sea clings to the glinting scales. The fishmongers pay 3 salted fish and a few coins for my help. Someday, I swear, I will not be a boy on a donkey. I will be a man in a boat. So that's Gio's section, and I'm going to read something very, very short from Jean's section. And Jean is in France, in Saint-Malo, France. And she is rich, like totally different rich than everybody else. And then her husband, who will be Gio, and her daughter Mary in America. So she grows up and her father is a doctor. And you will see how privileged she is. The smell of the sea. So this is Jean, Saint-Malo, France. So imagine all the French scenery, 1915. The smell of the sea climbs the walls of our city like a salty, dangerous pirate who steals into my bedroom and whispers into my ear, "Come with me." The night turns me into a sparrow, wings tipped with golden arrows. The stars sing in the firmament, a song that belongs to me alone. Come home. We live in a house on the top of a hill, filled with beautiful things and a maid to dust them. We live in a house with a small black dog named Felix, who eats out of a crystal bowl. We live in a house filled with visitors who drink champagne and dine on oysters and canapé in the rose garden. We live in a house as old as the cathedral with a balcony door that opens to an emerald sea. We live in a house filled with books, tales of adventures and voyages. And I wonder if these stories will ever be written about me. A letter arrives. Papa breaks a government red wax seal to open it. He is needed in the war. They know he will be a wonderful doctor in the French Foreign Legion. It is time for him to fulfill his duty to his country. He will leave the day after Christmas. He throws a letter into the fire. It crackles and spits and rises up the chimney as black as smoke. It is mid-December, and we gather with our neighbors for La Fête de Noël, our winter festival. It is my favorite day of the year. We eat crêpes filled with sugar and jam and galette, saucisse, spiced sausages, drink cider and chouchen, a honey brew. My father's friends pat him on the back, wish him luck. Neighbors thank him for his service. The music begins. We laugh and breathe hard. We dance and sing in a circled chain to the bagpipes, the accordion, the fiddle, and the drum. Two sisters join the stage and sing an a cappella song. We stop to listen. Their voices wind around each other. A threaded bobbin whirling inside a spinning wheel. They sing Le Chant des Marins, a sailor song for our people. I'm going to sing. I wrote this song. Are you ready? The Bretons are wild like the purple heather that grows on a rocky shore. The Bretons are sweet like the gold we squeeze from the depths of the honey lure. The Bretons are brave as the northern wind, and we know that we must pray to the Lord our God to keep our ships from that dark and watery grave. Oh, keep us from that watery grave. Oh, keep us from that grave. And that's Call Me Athena. So I could pivot in several ways. We're at only 30 minutes, like you said, David, earlier. But I could read a couple of adult poems, or I could answer questions that you have about the book. There's always a lot of questions about the book. Whatever you think is best.
I think why don't you go ahead and continue reading whatever you'd like to read, because we'd love to hear it.
Well, that's an interesting
Especially some of those adult poems.
Yeah, so actually I'd like to show you so I was thinking, I mean, I have a ton of adult poems, hey ho, and
let's call them grown-up poems.
Yeah, exactly, grown-up poems. I was actually thinking about reading the poem that I got published in the Mid-American Review. Dan, this is one of the places that I got my imagistic poems published. My Imagist poems published. But this was the poem that started it all, actually. And so it's like the book. I think this is kind of interesting. So I wrote this poem before I wrote the book. And I think it's interesting that you have a moment, you have an experience, it becomes a poem, and then it becomes a book. So I think that progression, and then fingers crossed, it becomes a movie. You know what I mean? But this, actually, going back to the image, it started with this experience of Phoebe that I said earlier, but it also started with this image of a jellyfish that is called the immortal jellyfish. And the whole entire poem kind of spirals around that image. So it's called Immortal Jellyfish. And it was actually a finalist for the James Wright Poetry Award. And it's a sequential poem, so there's numbers, just prepare yourself. I know these are kind of snooty. All right, Immortal Jellyfish, 1. In your father's village, nets cover the ground to catch the golden olives that fall like coins from the sky. At the shore, boys dive into teal water for sponges. Fishermen smash purple octopuses across a jagged rock and toss them into the bottom of a bucket, a gelatinous liquid pool of flesh. 2. They say there's a bell-shaped jellyfish with a bright red heart that lives in the Mediterranean Sea. And when it gets sick or old, it reverses the biotic cycle and it reverts back to infancy indefinitely. So I'll break for 1 second to, when you are someone who has a loved one who's struggling with Alzheimer's, isn't that an amazing thing? When it gets sick or old, it reverses the biotic cycle and reverts back to infancy indefinitely. 3. There's a picture of you as an infant. It's hanging in my sister's old bedroom, where for years she read novels and grew into a woman. In the picture, your twin, Margaret, burns with a fever. She's wearing a funeral shroud. You're so lucky to have a sister, you often said to the two of us. After she was gone, it felt like a part of me was missing. 4. You got old and you wandered around, lost in your white flowing nightgown. Senile and frail, a plucked chicken, all bones and sagging skin. Where's the baby? The baby is crying, you would say, as we guided you back to bed. 5. We visit the old country. Inside a cool, dark house, your aunt Violetta makes lace and bread. Golden icons clutter the heavy lacquered furniture, the cool linoleum tiles waxed with the strong smell of pine. She remembers her brother who had no thumbs. She laughs and pretends she has mutilated hands so that we know that she knows we are family. 2 braids wrap around her head like a crown. She is an orphan. 6. One night, we slept in the same bed. You drank too much wine and you thought you were dying. With your bird body wrapped around mine, I realized how little you had been touched. You said to me, someday you will have a daughter, which I do. Kiss her for me and tell her that I love her. And when I cross over, I will tell them about your beautiful heart. They will make a space for you. You will help me. You will place the coins on my eyes. You will pay the ferryman. It will be you. This was before we realized that you were already gone, a butterfly in your brain, living in a world of your own choosing. 7. When we visit you now, you sit in a chair with your hand stretched out. Sometimes you speak out loud, a chant to yourself, to your loved ones long dead. These were her actual words. You can stay if you can find your way through, but I can't find the door and I can't find the key. How can I find something that doesn't exist? 8. They send me a video of your mouth open. A hospice nurse swabs your tongue with a sponge. I send you a video of my daughter singing to a chestnut mare, surrounded by a field of golden wheat. I know these are the last exchanges. 8. My favorite word used to be scarlet, until it was linked with fever. When a coral web moved across her chest and her body fueled the fire, her eyes a gray blank canvas. Imagine children dancing, a train coming to receive her, the snow falling softly in her bedroom. I think someone is drawing a picture just for me, she said, as I lifted her up and sang a lullaby only a mother can sing. Sorry, guys. Well, intense. So that was the poem that was like really originally what started the book. And then I want to write one more poem that I wrote, or I want to read one more poem that I wrote for my husband, thinking about how the family carries on. And he is a woodworker. He's actually a geologist, but he likes to work wood. That sounds bad, but he likes to craft with wood. And he was building, as a Christmas present to me, he was building bookshelves. And on the bookshelves, as he was placing them in, I said, oh, no, 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 you have to stop. And he pulled out the big slab that was going across, and I pulled out a Sharpie pen and I wrote this very hurried poem on the inlaid bookshelves in our house. And so they are embedded in my house, and they are the love for my husband. It's called It Is Written. It is written. This is a love note written out of smoke. Years spent digging in the dirt, planting and birthing. This is a note written on the palms of your hands, lines that say you will live a happy life with canyons of doubt and triumph. This is a note where letters and words form constellations in the sky, where planets are pulled together with unimaginable force. This is a note written of wood, carved and fashioned and smoothed by hand, a carpenter's note, a worker's note, a note from someone who has loved you in the meager years and the years of plenty. This is a love note written in water, where I carve a thought with my hand, a life with my hand, and then it disappears. All right, that's it. That's all I can cry. Somebody else talk.
Well, we usually we're entitled to a 2-poem warning.
A 2-poem warning? I don't know if I have one more.
Okay, we'd accept a 1-poem warning.
Okay, well, this is also about, I kind of pulled out like all my grandmother poems because it like makes sense with this, with the reading of the other book. There's a lot of poems that aren't about my grandmother too, but I actually really like this one because it's about all family. So 1-poem warning, and then I'm done. And then I want to hear you read. It's called Let Us Stay Here. Under the pictures of our grandmother laughing as the children play under the purple altar, the mother of Jesus framed in a golden circle. Light streams in through the colored glass. The path is lit by street lamps. The wooden house smells of baked bread and herbs, and the low sun bounces off the river like a ball on a trampoline. We lose ourselves in sleep. We don't know which house we are in. Home. We love each other, and the night loves us back. Oh, swaying hammock of stars, we pray. Let us wake up in the morning and count the bones that are still here.
Thank you, Colby. Time for everybody to